You know, nerd culture tends to hold the 1980s in very high regard. In fact, it's kind of become its own self-contained entity. The 80s have transmogrified into this geek utopia, retrospectively considered a time when everything was fucking awesome. When you play this game, it's hard to argue otherwise. Its density has popped it to you because the flowers are still standing. It's Retro City Rampage for the Nintendo Wii. Released to WiiWare just a few weeks ago, Retro City Rampage is a celebration. It's a celebration of the 80s, not just its video games. For every reference to Mario or Zelda, or Frogger, or Mega Man, or freaking Iron Sword, there's a gag about the Ninja Turtles, or Bill and Ted. It's a collection of references to things with nothing in common but a decade. And that a certain demographic cherishes every one of them. And if you're part of that demographic, you have to play this game. Retro City Rampage puts you in the self-tying shoes of the player, a street thug who accidentally uses a time-traveling phone booth and ends up in the year 20XX. Upon his arrival, he meets a crazy scientist named Doc. For those playing at home, that puts the reference count somewhere between holy crap and I am the gatekeeper. So the game just hammers you with references to movies, games, and anything from that nerd utopia we now call the 1980s. But the substance, that's where this thing really takes off. Because this is basically Grand Theft Auto for the Nintendo Entertainment System. And it's pretty freaking good. So Retro City Rampage is an open-world action game in an 8-bit style. You have 60 main missions to attend to, but you're also free to roam the streets of Theftropolis. There's side missions galore, cars to steal, people to flatten, and the game also has a tendency to just, randomly throw new gameplay at you. Suddenly it's a side-scroller, and then it's Metal Gear. It's like a schizophrenic celebration of all that is classic gaming. And Christopher Lloyd. One of the coolest things about Retro City Rampage is that it works. It has a lock-on system that places modern shooting mechanics in this awesome retro context. And not only that, but you can also stomp enemies, Mario style. So it feels like more than just another retro throwback. It actually is a really modern-feeling game that manages to incorporate old and new into one cohesive experience. You can get this game on a bunch of different platforms. PlayStation Network, Xbox Live, Steam, the usual. But the WiiWare game comes with ROM City Rampage, which is a real 8-bit game, as it would have run on the NES hardware. In fact, it was the original prototype of Retro City Rampage, and it's a really interesting addition. It's amazing to see what the NES could do when pushed decades later. Was it original? No. Does it have its own narrative voice? It's a parody. There are certainly valid criticisms, frustrating difficulty spikes, a lack of checkpoints. It's not a perfect game, but it's not just a nostalgia trip either. Even when the references wear thin, you're still left with a fun, memorable, and perfectly functional 8-bit GTA. And if you don't like that, well, your ego's writing checks your body can't cash. It's Retro City Rampage, a love letter to childhood, signed 1.21 gigawatts.